In this video, I'm going to talk about a difference between connection and connection references and which one you should use. Okay. Now, there is a connection and there is a connection references. Now, what is connection? Connection is basically is used to connect to different services. Connection contains all the required information to connect to a service. So example, if you're connecting to a Outlook connector, then it should have all the specific information which is required by the Outlook connector to perform an action. Same goes with Dataverse, SharePoint, etc. Now, connections are not solution aware, hence they can't participate in an ALM process. Okay. Now, I'm going to uh, explain this in the demonstration. Now, connections can't be shared with other users directly. So, if you create a connection using, say, your credentials, then it will be specific to you. Okay. Flow owners, however, can see the shared connection. So, if you share a flow with a user, then that particular user can use the shared connection which is used by you, and then they can use those connections. Now, remember, always prefer connection references when you are doing project activity for your customer. Okay, and if it's like a production kind of a scenario, if anything which you're doing some sort of a research, or if you're doing some for internal testing purposes, or those kind of activity, connection should suffice. But always remember, you should always have your flow in the solution so that you can participate in the entire application lifecycle management processes. What is connection references? Connection references reduces the maintenance overhead. Okay, basically, connection references holds a reference to the shared connection instead of a direct connection. So I can relate it to some sort of a proxy. Okay, so connection reference does not actually hold a connection, but it holds a reference value to the shared connections. It is advisable to use connection references instead of using the connections. Now, changing a connection reference is centrally accomplished, unlike changing connection individually. Now, what does this mean? Is like, say, take for example, if you have authored a flow, and tomorrow, if that person leaves an organization, then it will be very difficult for you to make those changes within that flow, because either you should be an owner of that flow, or maybe you need to have that flow shared by that user, and you need to actually edit the flow in order to gain the control over that connection. Now, for connection references, it is all managed centrally, and this change can be implemented very easily. Okay, with less maintenance overheads. A cloud flow can have multiple connection references. Okay, now I can have one Outlook connection sending out an email, and then I can have another Outlook connection sending out an email with that same connection references. So that's possible. It is advisable to have one connection references within a solution for any service to be accessed, unless it is used in a different way. Connection references can be used in multiple flows. Okay, so you provision one connection reference, and then you can reuse in multiple different flows. As I mentioned to you, connection references are solution aware. They participate in an ALM process. Connection references can be added from a solution as well. So you can actually create an object of connection references, add it into the solution, and then make use of that. And you can share connection references with service principal as well. Now, how to distinguish between connection references? Now, this is a simple example. Here, I'm just sending out an email. Now, if you see here the word my connection, so when you see this word my connection, that means it is connections. Okay, it is a direct connection to this particular user account. Okay, now under connections, you will see all the connections which has been created. Okay, so in make.powerautomate.com, under connections, you will see all the connection which has been created. And if you go inside a connection, you will be able to see which apps or flows are using the specific connection. Now, at the same time, for some connection, you can also connect with service principal. However, this is out of the topic for this particular video. I'm going to cover this in a separate video, but there is a possibility that you can connect with the service principal for some of the connectors within Microsoft Power Automate. Connection references. Now, as I mentioned to you, you can create an object of connection references by creating a solution and then adding those connection references. You can actually put a display name, you can put a description for the connector, and you can use an actual connection for that connection references and then use that in your flow or power apps. Now here, the differences, if you see here, now it is saying connection references. Earlier it was my connection, but if you're using connection references, it will show you connection references. So let me demonstrate to you in the live example. So I'm in one of the environment. Okay, now I'm going to provision a flow, okay, which will be an instant flow. I'd call it as say end email now. Okay, and this is a flow which is not part of any of the solution. Okay, so I'm manually triggering a flow and add an action. I will send email. Okay, so for send email, I will use Office 365 Outlook, send an email, and then I will specify whom to send. Okay, so let me put Girish, and I'll just put a subject and a body. Okay, and this is how I save this connection. Okay, so let me save this value. Okay, then it says true is required, so true we have already specified. Okay, and this error should go now. Okay, so this is how you set a connection. Okay, so send an email, and I can I can see over here it is connected to Girish.Uppal. Okay, and if I click on change connection, okay, then you will see that this is related to a connection associated with my account. Okay, now let me go back and show you in the old interface how it looks like. Okay, so if I click on edit, now this is a simple trigger which sends out an email using Outlook connector. And this flow I have created manually, it is not in any of the solution. So if you click over here, you will see it is my connections. Okay, and you can add multiple connections. So if I click on add new connection, I can add multiple connections, but again this is not within any solution. This flow cannot participate in any ALM process. Let me duplicate this tab, and let me go into say solutions. Okay, now in this solution I will use the already existing solution. uh, Let me see what solution I have over here. I have a parent child flow solution. I'll use the solution, and here if I create the same flow. Okay, if I say new automation cloud flow and instant flow, and I'll call this as send email to. uh, the difference between this flow and the other flow is this is created in the solution. Okay, now here again send email, and I can select the values, and I'll just save this. Okay, now this flow is in a solution, this flow is not in a solution. If you see here, this is my connections, and here this flow is in a solution. Here you'll see connection references. Okay, so it is using the connection references rather than using connection, and that will help us participate in an ALM process. So that is the primary difference. But how do you see all the different values, okay, of the connection? So in make.powerautomate.com, if you go into connections, you will be able to see all the connections which is listed within your specific environment. Okay, so it will give you a complete list of all the connections. Now here, this is an Outlook email connections. Now if I click here and I say details, then it will show me which app and which flow is using this connection. Okay, so there are no apps using this connection and flow. Now the flow which you have just created, send email to, okay, which is using this connection, but we don't see that send email one flow, right? Now that is using a separate connection and it is not using the connection from here. Okay, now there is a send email now which we have created. Now this one is not participating in an ALM process, right? Send email now. Now this flow which we have created, and we said that this flow is specific to this one, this flow which we have created, this is not part of the solution. However, this flow is a part of the solution. Now what else can we do is, if we go into the solution and open any solution or create a new solution, let me open the solution. Now here if you see that, if I go to new and if I go to more, I can create a connection reference. Now this connection reference means you can use a specific connection reference if you want. Now you can call this as a, let me call this Giri email primary. Okay, I can put some description and you can say what connector you want. Okay, now there are a whole bunch of connectors which is available. Now let me select if there is, I can use Microsoft Dataverse, I can use Microsoft Forms, I can use whatever connection I want, you know. Now let me, or I'd say Office 365 Outlook is what I'm looking for, and I can have this connections. Now if I want to use some other people's connections, I can also do that, but I need to log into that particular user's interface. Okay, so let's take for example, if I click on say new connection here, then it will take me to the connection section. Okay, and then it will say which, by which user you want to create. Okay, so if I click on say create, then this will prompt me for logging in, and let me log in using say Alex. Okay, so let me show you this. And I have Alex's credentials stored, and it will do a MFA. Now here I have created a new connection reference, but using Alex account. Okay, Office 365 Alex account. Now here you can see this. Now, now coming back here, if I refresh this, then I should see Alex's connection. I click on Alex, and now this Giri email primary is a connection reference which is calling an Outlook connector with Alex's connection. I click on create. Okay, and thereby I can use these connections. Now here you will see that in the solution I have added this connection reference object, and now I can use this email primary connection reference to execute the flow. Okay, so the flow which I have created is say send email to. Okay, so let me open this flow and I will edit this flow. And if you see here, this has now two connection references, Giri email CR and Giri email primary, which we have created. Now I will use this connection reference. Okay, and I will save this, and this particular flow will now use the different connection reference. So thereby you can create multiple connection references belonging to a different user account, and thereby you can use that in the flow. And as I told you, you can go into connections to see which all connection references you have. So if I go into connections, Then I can see Alex connection is present over here. And if I see the details and if I see which flow is using that connection, then the send email to flow comes up over here. Within Power Apps interface, you have connections. Again, here also you can see the connections within Power Apps interface. Now, let me show you. Yeah. Now, this connection is from Power Automate. This connection is from Power Apps. Now, if you see the interface, in both this interface, it is same. You can also trigger a connection from here as well. You can trigger a connection from here as well. Okay. But again, I told you, if you want to create a specific connection reference, create your own solution, add that connection reference as an object, and start utilizing that within your Power Apps or Power Automate solutions. So that's it, folks. This is all about using connections and connection references within Microsoft Power Automate. Thanks for watching.